Namaste. Thanks for coming today, everybody. Okay, so we're just going to start by just doing a little bit of movement to kind of open up the heart a little bit. So let's do this one where we take the arms out into cactus position, pull the shoulders back, elbows back, hands back, and just kind of tip the bottom tips of the shoulder blades a little more into the back of the ribs. Take a big breath. Then exhale. Bring the arms forward, let your back round and drop your chin. Then we'll just keep that moving. So inhale, shoulders back, elbows back. Exhale, round. Inhale, open up the heart, shoulders back, hands back, elbows back. Exhale and round. Inhale, heart forward. Exhale and round. Inhale, heart forward. Exhale and round. One more round. Inhale, heart forward. Exhale and round. And come back to your upright seat. We're going to do one little piece of pranayama right now. So I want you to put one hand on your heart and one hand on the top of your head. And we're going to make the sound ah and then e. And I want you to feel what happens when you make the e sound on the top of your head. So think of the ah sound starting in the heart and then just feel what happens when we make the e sound. All right. So take a breath in. And we'll do it again several times. And then release. So hopefully you were able to feel the connection from the heart energy to the crown. So this is a really great exercise to help connect the heart with the head, right? Where there can often be a disconnect. Now let's take the arms back out into cactus. And we're just going to twist from side to side. And you can do this very slowly if you've got a lot of stuff going on, you're congested, right? You can do this more slowly, see how it works out, right? We'll inhale left, exhale right. Here we go. Come back to center, just cross your arms over your heart. Just sit for a moment, just drop your chin, sit with a tall spine, hands on your heart. Breathe into your chest. One more round of breath. All right. And we'll do the same thing, inhaling to the right, exhaling to the left. Again, to the pace that works for you. Okay. So arms back up into cactus. And here we go. All right, and then release. And again, just cross your arms over your chest, drop your chin. Again, sitting with a tall spine, breathing into your heart. All right, and then release the arms. Okay, so just remaining in your cross-legged seat, we're just going to walk the hands forward a little bit. Get a little stretch perhaps for the hips and the low back. So walk your hands out and forward. Don't go too far. Just take it, until you just start to feel a stretch wherever that is. You might be more upright here. You might be hands further forward. Some of you might have your chest on the floor. Just, are all in different places in our bodies. So hang out with this for a moment and just notice where you start to feel it. So if you're feeling it in your hips, probably one more than another, and probably more the leg that's further forward than the one that's closer in. Now, if this does not work for your knees, the deep bend in the knee doesn't work coming forward like this, you could just take your legs out in Upavishta. It's going to be more of a hamstring stretch then, but it's a perfectly acceptable place to be. Now, can you walk your hands a little further forward? Just check in on yourself and see where it is here. Don't try to overstretch yourself. Don't try to overstretch the back. Just be really present with the amount of stretch that your body is feeling here. And walk your hands in, and then we're going to recross the legs the other way. Other leg forward. And then bring the hands again just slightly forward. See how it is. Now, chances are pretty good that with crossing the legs in the weird way, there may be a little bit more showing up. So just be really present with it. How does that feel? Oh, I'm processing this through my body. Observing it. Grateful for this body. Grateful for all the brilliance of all the systems in this body that are constantly trying to figure things out, that are constantly trying to keep all systems running smoothly, right? So even when we get sick, your body is, it's working so hard to restore you. So hard to restore you. And sometimes we get sick because the body just simply needs to be shut down. The systems need to kind of come down for a little bit, especially after the holidays. It's not uncommon. Maybe the hands walk forward just a little bit more. Keep breathing. Now, if you have this capacity, I'll just offer this as a little way to kind of tweak this a little bit. Fingertips are on the floor. Push the fingertips forward and root your tailbone a little more underneath yourself as you pull your low belly in and out. And then let's walk the hands in. All right, let's flip over and come onto our hands and knees and do a little bit of work from that position. Myself a little padding there. Okay, so from your tabletop, curl your toes under and sit back towards your heels and stretch your feet for a moment. Pull your heels in toward one another so they're pointing more upright as you sit back. So just a little stretch for the feet. Now, if it's more comfortable for your shoulders to have the elbows on the floor, you can keep the elbows down, or you can lift the elbows up and just give yourself a little bit more of a heart-opening position here. Make sure you have your hands as wide as your mat. Don't try to have the hands more narrow than that at this particular moment. All right, and then we'll lift up and shift forward, just come into a low plank for a moment. And then sit back. We'll go back and forth between these two very slowly. So inhale forward, come to your low plank. And exhale and sit back in your puppy pose. And you can do the puppy pose keeping the toes curled under, or you can point the feet, whatever feels better for you. Inhaling forward to that low plank. Exhaling back to your puppy. Inhaling forward to that low plank again. Exhaling back to your puppy. Well, let's come back up to tabletop and work through a few rounds of cat and cow. So on your inhale, looking forward, lift the sitting bones. So start to get a nice bit of a back bend here. Exhale, push down into the hands, round your back, and really draw your chin toward your chest. Inhaling, settling through the heart, looking forward, lifting the sitting bones. And exhale and round. Just the act of letting the head go up and down does help to start to move the energy through the sinuses and hopefully clear some congestion. Now, as you do this, going back and forth, you might feel like you have to stop and blow your nose, and so be it. But by the end of the practice, you might feel a bit of a difference. Just continue. Nice slow motion cat and cows, getting more mobility in the flexion and extension of your spine. Couple more rounds. All right, and then settling back to a neutral spine. Walk your hands over to the left. Make sure you have your hands at your shoulder distance or so, and then sit back. Getting a deeper stretch down your right side with the hands to the left. You're not necessarily bringing your sitting bones to the heels. You really want to have a little bit of space there so you can work the stretch on the side body. And let's lift up, walk your hands over to the right and sit back. Breathing. And stretching down that left side, so getting a little heavier in the sitting bones. And let's lift up and come back to center with the hands. Okay, so curl your toes under, lift your knees up, and just take a little bent knee down dog for a moment. And then set the knees down. Walk your hands forward and come into a little bit of a low plank here. We're going to come down onto our bellies. So get that blanket out of the way. Come down onto your stomach. Just rest your chin on your hands for a moment. Pick your feet up. And let's just rotate the feet around a little bit, kind of getting a little bit of movement in the ankle chakras here. So circle your feet around one direction and then the opposite direction. Now bring both legs down to the floor. Keep your chin on your hands, and you're just going to lift your left leg up just a couple of inches. Kind of push through the big toe mound, keeping the thighs parallel, and then draw your tailbone a little more underneath you. And then set the left one down with the right one. Try to keep the weight in the front of your pelvis even as you're lifting the leg, rooting the tailbone down. Go back to the first side, lift the left leg, press the top of your right foot down into the floor and spread your left toes as you're lifting the leg. And then once again, right side, right leg lifts. Pubis pushes down into the floor as the leg lifts. And lower both legs. All right, now let's take the left leg out into a frog leg, out to the side. Say hello to the hips here a little bit. Don't try to do too much with this. Just taking the outer form of the pose. Be a frog. You know, when you watch frogs move, they're pretty fluid. There's not a lot of muscular energy. Frogs aren't thinking, "Ooh, I must root my sitting bone on that side." You know, pretty liquidy. So can you just let that leg just be? All right, and then bring that leg back to the floor. Take your right leg out, just a loose frog leg. Allowing whatever stretch to the inner thigh and the hip that are going to happen without trying to push anything. Just let it be. All right, and then bring the right leg back. Hands alongside the chest. We'll press up to table. And we're going to come back onto the feet and just in a little bit of a squatting position. Now, if you want to, if your heels do not come to the floor in a squat, you might take your blanket, a folded blanket or a rolled up blanket, take it back behind you, and then it'll support your heels as we come up. Now, you can have your feet as wide or as close to one another as is appropriate for you. For most of us Westerners, squatting is just not something we do very regularly, and it may not be something that your knees are down with that program. So just see how it feels just to kind of be in a squat for a moment. All right, and then we'll come out of it. So go ahead and come down, back to your knees, back to your tabletop. And we'll do a little bird dog. So let's take the left leg back, toes point down, lifting the leg about parallel to the floor, and then pull your belly in and up, and then keep kind of pushing through that back foot, bringing the right arm forward. And then set down and switch sides. Right leg back, left arm forward, pull the belly in and up, and just take a bird dog here. And both hands down, both knees down, back to the left leg, right arm. Really think about elongating that leg as you push through the heel. Pull your belly in and up so you have some support from the core here. And then set the hand down, set the knee down. One more time on the other side, lifting the right leg. Pull the belly in and up and lengthen your right leg as you're pushing back through the heel. And then both hands and both knees down. We're going to come up onto our knees to a vertical spine. Okay, so let's just inhale, take the arms up and overhead. And exhale, bring the arms down. And inhale, arms come up. You can look up as you take your arms up. Just feel your body wanting to take a little bit of a back bend there. And then exhale and bring the arms back down. And one more time, arms come up, take a hold of your left wrist and tip yourself to the right. You're getting a little deep stretch down, all the way down. Notice if you have more weight in your right knee. Can you have a little more weight in your left knee? It's a little harder to do, I think, than when we're standing and we're trying to do that on our feet. And then back to center. Take a hold of your right wrist, tip yourself over to the left. And again, do you have much weight on your right knee? Can you lean a little more weight on the right knee? It's really kind of challenging. And back to center. Great, let's take the hands back behind us. Roll your shoulder heads back. Now with the toes curled under, I'll show you this sideways. With the toes curled under, we're just going to sit just a little bit back, stretching the feet. If it doesn't work for your feet, you'll point your toes and sit back a little bit. We're just trying to charge up the leg muscles a little bit. Lifting the hands just gently. And then come back to vertical. And sit back, and as you sit back, try to lift the hands just a little bit. And back to vertical. And sit back, lifting the hands. And back to vertical. And one last time, sit back, lift the hands. You're not quite sitting on the heels, or if you need to sit on the heels, sit on the heels, and then back up. Great. All right, so let's go ahead and bring the hands back down to the floor. Back to your tabletop position, and this time widen the knees, point the toes, let your big toes touch, and sit back for just a nice, good old-fashioned child's pose. So essentially, it's very similar to a squat because of the deep bend in the knees. And, if a squat just doesn't quite serve you, but you're fine in child's pose, you might just take a child's pose instead. Just breathing. All right, and then just come on back up to your tabletop, and we're going to do a little threading of the needle. So taking the weight onto the left hand, inhale, take the right arm up. And then exhale and slide your right arm under your left arm, come down. Just rest on the shoulder for a moment. Breathing. If it would work for you to take your left arm behind you, you want to walk that left hand to the top of your right thigh, go there. Or hand could go on the hip. Hand could just work its way around to wherever it's going to go, somewhere in between there if you like. And you stretch for the neck. Really working on keeping the head of the left arm bone rooting back. And then release. Slowly come back up to table. And let's try the other side. So taking the weight onto your right hand. Inhale, take the left arm up. And exhale, slide your left arm under your right arm as you come down onto that left shoulder. And maybe you can just keep your right hand on the floor if that just feels like a better place. Or maybe the right arm comes behind you and the hand finds its way into the left hip crease to the top of the thigh, rolling the left shoulder head back. And then we'll release. All right, and come back up to table. Now let's grab a pair of blocks. And we'll set ourselves up for a lunge here, a low lunge. Keep the back knee down. So the back knee will be the left knee on the front foot. The right foot will come forward. You set your blocks on their highest setting right alongside of, so that they're in line with the ankle. Now curling those left toes under, go ahead and lift the left knee, pushing through the back heel, and then set your back knee down. Take a breath. And we'll do it again. Lifting up the left knee, push through that left heel, elongate the inseam of the left leg. See if you can sit a little deeper in the front leg. And then set the back knee down. Now lift your hips, slide your hips back. Let's take a runner's lunge. You could stay up here if you're feeling pretty stiff. You could lose the blocks, or you can tip the blocks down a notch if that's a better place for you as we come to a runner's lunge. Engage the legs, push down through your right heel as you're coming forward just a bit toward that leg. Nice and easy. And be very gentle and sweet with yourself. And then we'll lift up. Bend back into your right leg, and we'll just switch legs. Bring the right knee underneath you. Take your left foot forward. Find your setup for your low lunge here. And then curling the right toes under, lift your right knee and push through your right heel. Just a breath or two. And then set your right knee down. Rest for a minute. You're not trying too hard. You're not doing a lot of muscular energy here. You're just let your body simply receive the shape that you're in, the position your body is in, whatever that stretch is, because we think it's one thing up here. The body's having its own interpretation of what you're asking it to do. Maybe those two things are spot on, and maybe they're radically miles and miles apart. All right, lift the back knee again. Coming back to that high lunge. Pushing through the back heel. Settling into that front hip a little bit. And then set the back knee down. Okay, and we'll start to shift this back into a runner's lunge. Again, keep the blocks or not, completely up to you. A nice, long, gently rounded spine as you come forward. You're not trying to press your chest to your thigh. There's nothing like that. You're just simply working with, oh, this is a good stretch. I feel that. Okay. A little bit of muscular energy as you push the heel down into the floor so you engage the hamstrings while you stretch them here. All right, and then we'll bend back into that front leg. Great. Come back to hands and knees here. And we'll walk the hands forward and come down onto the belly again. Resting chin on the hands. Point your toes straight back, or just take a little shalabhasana here. So bring the arms back alongside of you. Don't reach for the hands, just alongside. Lift up through the chest a little bit. Try to keep the tops of the feet on the floor. Especially notice if your pinky toes are lifted, and try to keep the pinky toes down as you're lifting through the chest and reaching the arms alongside of your body. A little bit of muscular energy in your abdominals. And release. Resting your chin on your hands again. Picking the feet up. And this time just point and flex the feet rather than circling the ankles. Just a point and flex. Feeling into the calf muscles a little bit. All right, and legs to the floor. Let's prop ourselves up into a Sphinx pose here, just to get a little bit more back bending time. Settle down into your chest a little bit. Maybe there's a gentle pulling back in the forearms and hands isometrically. Pull your low belly up. So you push the pubis down into the mat a little bit and then draw your belly in and up. Try to do that without really clenching your buttocks. It sometimes feels like it's impossible to separate the two, but just see what you can muster there. And then we're going to look over, settle down into your heart a little bit so that you feel like your heart is kind of hanging between the shoulders there. Pull your shoulder heads back a little bit and then see if you can turn your head to look over your left shoulder and then back to center and look over the right shoulder and back to center. Now, curl your toes under. We're going to do the same thing. You just walk your toes up towards your navel a little bit. Hug your heels in a little bit toward the midline so you have a little more engagement in the legs. Now, pushing the pubis down into the mat, bring it forward. And then keep all that in the lower body. We'll do the same thing again. So look over your left shoulder, back to center, look over the right shoulder, and back to center. Now pick your feet up, flex the feet, spread the toes, Press your pubis down into the mat, bring it forward. And then same thing one more time. Look over the left shoulder, then back to center, and look over the right shoulder, and back to center. And bring the legs down, and bring your chin down to rest on your hands, rest your back for a moment. All right, slide the hands back alongside of your chest and press up to table. Now you're gonna need a bolster. We're gonna lay over a bolster and open up the intercostals and the side ribs, which especially with respiratory stuff and just kind of that winter yuckiness, it's a nice thing to be able to do. So if you have a big cylinder bolster, you may not need anything extra for height. I'm going to take a blanket on top of this bolster because it's a little on the flat side. All right, so once you've got it, you're going to put it horizontally across your mat. And then you're going to come down, sit right next to it, and drape yourself over the side of the bolster like this. So what you want to do is, once you bring your head all the way down, the top arm is going to go up and you're going to rest your head on that arm if possible. You want to see if you can have the weight as even as possible here. So the hip and the shoulder, maybe neither one of them are actually bearing much weight, or they're not at all. Then you can take your legs, and we're going to scissor the legs here. So the top leg's going to come forward, the bottom leg's going to move back, just like we do when we just do our regular twist here. We just happen to be kind of lifting and opening up the side ribs here. Now with your head resting on your arm, take the opposite hand to the opposite hip and push it away from you a little bit. So you already get a sense of, kind of creating space between the ribs that are looking up toward the ceiling, so to speak. Just feel into that as you just allow yourself to drape and open. Now, let your hand come off of your hip, take that arm up, and the bottom hand is going to reach up and take a hold of your top wrist and give it a little pull. And as you pull on that wrist, you're going to kind of push. You already had your hand on your hip, so you can kind of you have a memory of that feeling. Try to push that hip away as you're pulling on the top wrist. Just opening up the side ribs. And breathing with that as best you can. Just a couple more breaths and then we'll switch sides here. We're not going to stay here too long. All right, and let's release that. Find your way up. And you can either just flip right over or you can move your props around or whatever. I'm going to do this just so I can keep looking at you. Okay. Good. And same thing other side. So drape yourself over and see if you can get a sense that neither the hip nor the shoulder are bearing any weight. Maybe they're just kind of floating above the floor, so to speak. And then you'll set up your legs, top leg forward, bottom leg back as you scissor. And then we'll start with the hand on the hip. So just pushing that hip away from you a little bit, just getting a sense of kind of that lengthening of the side ribs here. Just feeling into that. Make sure you're breathing. right? Lots of good deep breath. All right, top arm comes up and over, and the bottom hand reaches up for the top wrist, and then you give it a pull. As you pull on the top wrist, the corresponding hip pushes away. So you lengthen out those side ribs a little bit more. Keep breathing as you hang out with this. Couple more breaths. All right, and then let's release. Slowly find your way up. Now we're going to come down onto our backs. We're going to come right into an eye of the needle shape. So go ahead and cross the right ankle over your left knee. Draw your left leg in toward yourself as you work a little more deeply in your hips. So spreading the toes. And then just let your legs move away from you so that you get the sacrum down on the floor. Maybe even the top of the sacrum is lifted, the bottom of the sacrum is rooted. And then pull the legs in. And then release the legs away from you again. Trying to get a bit of a back bend there. And then pull the legs in. You're really getting the benefit. I'm right on the squeaky spot of my floor. And then one more time, moving the legs away from you. Now, try to keep a sense of that back bend and pull your low belly in and up. So your pelvis pretty much stays right there, and then try to draw your legs in without changing the angle of the pelvis. Just really bring it in. If you feel like you can take the legs in a little closer, you could take your hands to the front of your knee or your shin. Just work with yourself right where you are. Don't try to push the envelope and take it to a place where perhaps your body doesn't need it. It's the difference between depleting yourself and rejuvenating yourself, right? So treat yourself with a kind of care that you would treat, like your child. Don't push the envelope in a way that's aggressive to yourself. All right, now we're going to release, but keep the legs crossed so the right ankle stays on top of the left leg, and then just drop your legs over to the left until the left leg is on the floor. Rotate your right knee away from you a little bit. Try not to sickle your right foot and ankle. So if you press the pinky toe edge of your foot a little bit more against your left leg and spread the pinky toe, it'll help keep the foot from sickling. And that helps to kind of keep your peroneal muscles engaged and keep your knee in a more comfortable place. As you rotate the leg away, now bring the legs back to center. Slide the right knee tightly over your left knee and then drop your legs over to the right. A little deeper twist here. Now bring the legs back to center. Now loosen up the cross of the legs again so that the right ankle is just above that left knee. And then we're going to walk the left foot over to the right, just kind of heel toe it over there. And then see if you can kind of collapse the legs like a camp chair, right? You're coming into a supine Agni Stambhasana or fire log type pose. The legs are only going to collapse to the place where your hips will allow it. So you're still going to have probably one leg of the chair lifted, so to speak. Just let yourself go to where it feels appropriate. Don't try to smash your legs down. Just be with it, because chances are, I don't know about you, but it could be fairly intense. It's a deep psoas stretch for the bottom leg, as well as the top. But the bottom leg is the one that's anchored by the foot, so you're going to get probably a little deeper stretch there. And then come back to center. Uncross. Let's take the left ankle on top of the right knee. Draw your legs in. Taking the outer form of your eye of the needle. Just feeling into it at first, right? We've got several iterations of this, so just feel into it. How is it here? And then move the legs away from you. See if you can root the sitting bones down toward the floor, lifting the top of the sacrum, rooting the bottom of the sacrum down. And then bring the legs in. And just let your spine round naturally as you bring the legs in. And then we'll release again, moving the legs away, arching the back. Pull the legs in, let your back round. Feeling into that outer hip now. Maybe the legs come in a little closer and you feel a little bit more of a stretch in the hip. And then move the legs away. Push the sitting bones down. And then start to engage. Pull your low belly in and up. Try to keep this sense of a little bit of space under your spine, keeping your pelvis in this shape, and then just drawing the legs in. If you're really working that, you may not be able to bring your legs in as close, right? So really working the abdomen. Maybe you're able to bring the legs to the front of the knee. I'm just doing that actually because it just feels better for my hands than to have my hands back behind my thigh for some reason. I don't know why. Relaxing your facial muscles. And just being in this nice stretch. All right, and then we'll release. Go ahead and set the right foot on the floor, keeping the legs crossed, and then take your legs over to the right, resting the right leg on the floor and rotating your left knee away from you as you spread the toes on your left foot. Push the pinky toe edge of your left foot against your right leg as you're moving the left knee away from you. Be gentle with that. Bring it back in if it feels a little aggressive. Again, it's even in something like this, it's the difference between, are you depleting yourself to try to achieve something, or are you rejuvenating and restoring yourself by allowing just a little bit more the stretch to happen at just the right place for your body. Now bring the legs to center, and we'll slide that left knee a little more tightly over the right one, and then just drop the legs over to the left here as you get deeper into the stretch for the right side, maybe the outer right hip. Breathing. All right, and legs back to center. Don't uncross yet. We're just going to loosen up the cross of the legs. So the left ankle is still on top of the right knee. And then we're going to come toward this kind of supine fire log. Walk your right foot over to the left and see if the legs can root down just a bit. Karate chop the edges of the feet down toward the floor. And see where you land. Don't force anything. Just be with it. All right, and then let's bring the legs back to center and uncross. So what I'd like to do now is, if you'll roll to your side, come on up. We'll set ourselves up on the bolster for a nice big heart opening pose. If you're congested and laying your torso flat is not really an option, then you can take your bolster, prop it up on a block. So you put your block horizontally, and then your bolster goes on top of it. You don't want to have just the top of the bolster on the block. You want to have that block be like almost a third of the way down the bolster so that the bolster doesn't collapse when it has your body weight on it. Right? So setting up your ramp there. And then we'll set ourselves up any way you feel like you want to be with the legs here. So you might just bring the sacrum right to the bolster and lay back, scoot your shoulder blades in, and just let it be right here. If you feel like you want a little bit more baddha konasana position, you could take your blanket, roll it, bring the feet together, put the blanket roll on top of your feet, and then pull the blanket edges up towards your hips while you lay back so that your legs are supported at the outer hip or even the outer thigh. And you walk those shoulder blades in. So whichever feels great to you. Setting yourself up for our final pose. Now, in either one of these, one of the great things is there's a nice sense of opening for the heart. Your head is elevated a bit, and your arms can come down, palm turned up. Your elbows, maybe they're resting on the floor. But just take a moment to tuck the shoulder blades underneath yourself. So literally just lift up and scoot one shoulder blade in toward the spine and then the other, so that you just have this sense of the back body being supported, whichever one you've chosen. And then while you're here, if you want to just focus your awareness on your breath, breathing in and out, trying to make the exhale longer than the inhale. So if you're congested and you can't breathe through your nose, see if breathing through the mouth works for you. And if breathing big full breath is irritating the throat, then just breathe normally. It's fine. If you'll just start to bring your awareness now back to your body. Taking a full breath in and just starting to bring some movement back to your hands and your feet. If you have your legs in baddha konasana, you can bring the knees in toward one another. And then if you would just take your time to roll to your side and just slowly and gently come on back up to a comfortable seat for you. Great. All right, once you find your seat, if you'll bring your hands to Anjali Mudra. So honoring yourself right where you are in this now moment. Everything that you've navigated that's brought you here, how extraordinary. So I send so much deep love and gratitude to all of my teachers. It's just great to be here with all of you. I know some of you are under the weather or have been under the weather, so I hope that this more gentle practice has helped and will make your day a little brighter. So thank you. Om Shanti. Namaste.